Recording in progress.
Okay. So, yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and really looking forward to having Michelle on. We had a great informal talk just the other day, and of course, she was our keynote speaker on the third day, which I had to miss. I apologize. I was heading to my son's wedding, Michelle. I tried to explain to him that you were the priority, but he wouldn't listen to me. So, but we have Michelle on again, and she was a killer app, I heard, and I'm looking forward to hearing Michelle once again. And just as a quick prelude, I'm sure that everybody saw this, but Michelle is part of the IT team of one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. Okay, they have, I estimated a rough in, and I'm probably off by a little bit, but approximately 800,000 endpoints, 800,000, and at least 20,000 contact center seats, just to give you some perspective. Now, they're in various hospital groups, etc., but knowing what I know about the industry at large, they're probably in that vicinity. They're also, 24 different states, 2,400 locations, right? And no, it's Common Spirit Health there, Steve. Thank you. So, so Michelle's going to give her perspective, not just as a manager within her group, and she's got some very interesting perspectives on what they're doing between premise-based systems and cloud, right? Michelle, we talked briefly about that, which I found very intriguing. So she's got a lot to share, and I think Michelle will give us some true insights as to, how they view this particular end user, how they view the world, so, and what they're doing with it. So let me share my screen, and we'll get started. So again, we've got Michelle Payne on. Again, thank you, Michelle, for offering to be on again. We're really looking forward to this. And let me continue here. So we have a couple of polling questions here. So let me, this will probably bring you all back because these are actually legacy PBX questions. Okay, so the first one is, what key functionality is often difficult or impossible to implement with a legacy PBX, but standard in modern systems? Internal dialing, call routing, integrated mobility, providing information for accounting purposes, or other. And if it's other, you have to I'm going to volunteer you to provide me your other answer. Okay, just an FYI. So please vote. And as soon as we're done, this is very boring because everybody's voting the same answer. See, I just can't pull anything over on anybody here. Okay, well, let me just end the poll. Thanks, everybody. And I think this is a first. I think this was just too easy a question here. But as you can see the results as I'm popping up the share here, you'll see that everybody answered C, which, yes, that is correct. It's integrated mobility features for remote and hybrid work environments. And that was probably one of the big difficulties during COVID, which I'm sure Michelle experienced that as well. So yeah. Let me just give you also one more polling question. So let me go back. And let me go to this new one here. So I think everybody can see it. So what is the skill set of engineers required to maintain an older PBX becomes increasingly scarce? What is the main risk associated with the trend? AI improves system reliability. B, significant businesses disruption if the system fails and technician cannot be found for repairs. That's never happened to me. Easier software updates and patches, lower power consumption and cooling costs, or 5, other. Okay, and again, if you click on other, I'm going to volunteer you to provide your own answer. Okay. And darn it, everybody's these questions were way too easy. Everybody's volunteering just about the whole. Okay, well, let me end the poll here. Thanks, everybody. This is great. And let me share. So one person did an other. Who wants to volunteer on the other? Okay, Steve, go ahead.
I think it just had to be difficult, but it's just basic understanding of old school telephony.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. It's very, very interesting to see the newer players who are very data centric, who basically won the war years ago with voice over IP, and how they respond to issues, etc. They're very, very data centric and not necessarily very user centric, if that's a good word to say. So okay, well, thanks everybody. So let me stop the share. Thanks for that, and let me just end the poll here. Okay, and let me continue. Okay, so a big thank you to Nick Holliuti, who actually talked all about stir shaking and what to do about fraudulent and robocalls. We got a lot of requests post call last week to how do we contact Nick, or can we do maybe a part B on this? So maybe we'll do a part B on this at some time in the near future. It's he had some great material, and we ran almost the full hour. It was great. So a big thank you to Nick for that. Famous quote. So Michelle, I think you can tell me otherwise, but everything that has been invented, that can be invented, has been invented. What about the word AI? So,
Yeah,
and
no,
that was Charles Dewell, who was the commissioner of the U.S. Patents Office in 1899. Okay, a little bit dated, but I thought very timely. Okay, Fran, do we have happy hour tomorrow? I might be off on this.
No, we had happy hour last Thursday, and it was during the Thanksgiving holiday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so everybody had happy hour on their own.
Oh, I
So happy
see.
hour will be in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, in 2 weeks, got it. Okay, so again, we got Michelle on, and we're looking forward to hearing you, Michelle. And Dave, I know, is en route today. So, Fran, any thoughts from Dave by chance?
So it's time for renewal, everybody. It sounds like I might have that echo going on here, but time for renewal. And if you have any questions, especially from the VAC side, send a message to the listserv and let any of the consultants answer, encourage, show you the value. So please make sure you get your memberships in for next year.
Well, thank you, Fran.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, great. And then finally, Bill, over to you.
Yeah, I'm here too. So thank you, Steve. But yeah, membership renewals are in. I'm hearing a lot of echo today on these calls, so I don't know if it's just me or everybody.
Hmm. I can stop and come back in. I'm okay with that. If it was potentially me, let me.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be right back. Go ahead.
no, I'd say that that's the big one. I think we have several initiatives that are going on. Now that Steve's dropped, I don't hear echo anymore, so I was playing it on that in my ear. But yeah, I think there's a lot of activity that is happening, will be happening. Steve sent me some great notes this morning. We have another board meeting on Friday, so look forward to having that session and getting through some of the activities that are going on. But we're planning for a big year this year.
progress.
Could be better now.
Much better.
Much better.
Oh, it was me. Okay. Yeah, I had the musician feature turned on, so I just turned it off. Sorry about that. I'm a musician for another event next week, so therefore, I was testing it out. Okay. Well, thanks, Bill. I'm sorry. Did you finish up there, Bill?
Yeah, I did. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'm very excited to hear Michelle speak again today. It was very
Yeah.
moving.
Michelle,
Uh-oh.
are you signing autographs for us later or what?
No pressure. No pressure, guys. And
So,
why
Michelle.
want to hear the same story twice? I have no idea, but okay.
So, Michelle, if you can share your slides, that'd be great. Or if you want me to
Sure.
push your slides, I can do that as an alternate, of course.
Sure, I can do that. No problem.
Okay, great.
Michelle, so something tells me we're going to hear a whole different thing today.
I don't think so, unless you guys ask a whole bunch of different questions. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Let me share slideshow. All right. So again, thanks everyone for joining. I see a lot of the same people on, so hopefully this will be just as great as last time. So I'd like to just start off. Michelle Payne, I'm the voice engineering manager for Common Spirit Health. And so I work at the national level, which means I'm responsible for all of the engineering activities across all of our facilities. they cute the clinical and our business offices. So it's quite a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of endpoints out there, and we're all over the place. So in this conversation today that I'd like to have, please feel free. I'll try to pause and allow questions. Usually I have my partner in crime, Beth, doing her little questions that she asks, but please feel free. I want to start this out with kind of, where we started. We started this journey at Common Spirit Health about 10 years ago. And we started with putting in a couple of on-prem major enterprise, Cisco Enterprise UC, UCCE platforms. And so that's where we were 10 years ago. And we were excited to transition all of our heritage, legacy data over and communications over to those platforms. And so that's where we started out. And so this is the evolution of where we started and where we are today and how completely different they are. But definitely more from my perspective and from an end user perspective that a lot of times it's not all about the technology. And I think most consultants would agree with that the technology can be fantastic. But what you really need to pay attention to is the leadership, the lessons learned, innovation in the technology. And then again, for us, how healthcare's challenges are probably the same as most of the enterprises out there. We have a few special ones I'll touch on, but majority of this will apply to everyone. And like most people, I think a lot of us are still on our journey from being just a regular phone over to a communications platform. So while a lot of people at the conference were talking about AI, and of course we're there as well, but we're still back in trying to actually migrate all of our legacy PBXs over. So this is about my journey. So I would like to talk about our early journey, as I mentioned, about our VoIP on-prem solutions. We started out as Dignity Health. I don't know how many people know Dignity Health, but we were much smaller. We weren't Common Spirit Health at that time, and so we had a plan that we were going to move all of our facilities within 5 years. So that was our plan, and we were raring to go. Unfortunately, we were about 3 years into our plan to migrate our facilities when we realized that there were a lot of challenges that we had run into. And of course, several of those being, vendor misunderstanding. I'll talk a little bit more about that, underestimated remediation costs, and our compliance impacts for HIPAA, PHI, PCI. So, but what I want to talk about at this moment is, when I started this journey, we were migrating in part of this 3 years, migrating contact center, which is my passion, migrating a contact center over to our on-prem solution. And we had just completed our training. We were very excited. This is our first clinical connection center that we're going to migrate over. And these are the people who support our patients for scheduling and referrals and nurse triage. And I'm sitting inside of a command center, if you will, and it's completely glass, so I can see out the agents out on the floor. And they've had their training their first day. We've just ported. It's probably about an hour or two into after port, and things seem to be going really well. They've kicked us off the floor. They think they've got it. They're all good. So at that moment, all of a sudden I see an agent stand up. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why is she standing in the middle of, her call while she's, in the middle of the, environment? But she looks panicked, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's going on? What's happening? And all of a sudden here you see her supervisors come over. You see, the directors come over, and they're all standing there. And so I go out there. And this poor nurse is on the phone with someone who is having some serious issues. And she's talking to them about their challenges. And they are obviously completely distraught at this time and obviously having some mental health issues. they're talking about the fact that they are ready to commit suicide. And so that's obviously serious. And she's, she's very into the call, but she's also, looking for help because this brand new system, she's not really sure exactly what to do. What does she do? How does she conference in someone? What does she need to do to help this patient? And this patient is talking about the fact that they have been trying for weeks to get a hold of someone.
Wow.
They've left tons of voicemails. They have called in and been routed around menu to menu, but they've been disconnected, and they're just done. They're just fed up. And so she was their last call. In fact, I'm actually pretty surprised that the patient continued to make all those phone calls. So I'm glad that they did. So now they finally have someone on the phone, and this nurse is going to take care of them. So obviously, the first thing that she needs to do is use the system in order to, conference in, the suicide hotline and get them involved. So she takes her documentation that we gave her, her quick start guide, and she's got it, and she's like, okay, I can do this. So she conferences in the suicide hotline and starts a conversation with them. And while she's doing that, another agent is able to call 911 and start that journey and get those emergency services headed to that patient's house, so that they can help them physically. And she stays on the phone with them and the suicide prevention hotline, and she's able to hear both sides. She's able to, be able to contribute into the call. The supervisors are there to jump in at any moment with their bargain, so there's lots of support. The patient is starting to, calm down a little bit, and we're walking through that. So, I felt like she had a good handle on it because of our training and because what we had done, and really was thinking back to the fact that, all of those problems that they were having with the phone system of reaching someone are problems that businesses have every day, right? That they're problems that with legacy technology or even with new technology and the way it's configured. And so it's super important, to really pay attention to that, especially in healthcare. Every day I remind myself that every decision I make and everything that I do, everything that my engineers do, even down to my trainers, it all is impactful. And sometimes, it can mean life or death. So at that point, I was completely hooked in healthcare, and I won't be leaving anytime soon. So it's been great. So, in talking about, that type of thing, and the passion that I have now, you know, one of the things that I think happened in our early journey was that our vendors really didn't understand us. They didn't understand healthcare. So I think that one of the things that is really important for consultants to do, especially in healthcare environments, is really understand, what is happening in the healthcare environment. What are the patients or customers experiencing, and addressing those pain points. So they really didn't understand how important that was for us. So there was a lot of early issues with that, with setting up standards and certain things. Putting in VoIP is always fun. It's, great if you have a great network. Unfortunately, we did not include the millions of dollars in remediation costs that it would take to remediate our entire network at every facility. So that was something that was completely missed. We didn't really understand that every time we went in, we would have to do that. And so that added a lot of money to each one of our projects, which then caused us to be delayed. Also, the compliance impacts, the HIPAA, the PHI, the PCI, things like that, where, making payments, and this applies not only to healthcare, but to other industries, making payments across the phone is not secure. There needs to be, all of those integration pieces need to be talked about and how those are going to be handled. And that was something that was missed. So moving on, we do a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So we have all these legacy PBX systems, hundreds of them, and everything from we have Mitel, we have Nortel, we have ShoreTel, we have Panasonic, we have Tatarans, we have pretty much everything you can think of. Yeah, lots of old stuff. There's no standard deployment. We have everybody did everything the way they wanted to. So our technical debt is really huge. And, everybody who's building new solutions is bringing in new integrations, new technology is adding additional layers of complexity. So we have quite the spaghetti. So it really is important that, for the merger and acquisition portion, that organizations and, of course, as consultants, encourage the full integration of mergers and acquisitions as they happen instead of waiting until later. I think at one point we had 12 separate networks, so we're still working through that to get those all collapsed, and we're working on IP conflicts and things like that. But if it would have been done at the time of the migrations, we wouldn't have these problems now today. So, needless to say, when we became Common Spirit Health, we introduced Catholic Healthcare Initiatives, and that's where we became the huge organization that we are today. There was a lot of work that needed to be done initially, and so we still are really lacking in progress on our deployments. And while we've been working on these migrations, technology has already changed, right? We went through COVID, as you guys mentioned, the needs for remote workers. We didn't have that in place. There's been lots of things that have come back to say that we needed to look at something else. So we've, been taking this journey, but at the same time, the technology has been evolving.
So Michelle, let me ask you a quick question though.
Yeah.
So the one thing that we've learned through all of these mergers and acquisitions, the culture change is probably the most difficult thing. How do you standardize, on even just on call flows in a contact center, right, amongst the various acquisitions? So what have you seen in that area as an
Oh,
example?
absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody wants to do everything their own way. They're all special. They're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
they're all individual, unique, special. And then when we talk through it, it really is about the fact that they're not as special as they think they are.
right, right.
They all have very similar situations call routing needs, et cetera. So I think that for us, it was about, we are the voice team, we're voice engineering. So when we developed our initial contact centers and started migrating those, we then use that as the platform to say, hey, this is what we've done, in the past. This is what we have found has worked the best, and really
Mhm.
use our expertise as subject matter experts to say, based upon all of our years of experience and what we've done in these other areas, this is what we recommend. So I think a lot of people are looking for an option to change, because a lot of the direct managers and the people on the floor have got ideas. They just haven't had an opportunity to make that change.
Mhm.
And then I think it's also about, pushing the envelope with the leaders and having, you know, I would say confidence in the fact that the leadership needs to be be coached and mentored in the fact that that this is where you need to be, especially in a very large organization. You need to have standardization, otherwise it will cause more pain in the future. They won't be able to use the new technology and the new features and functionality that they want to, and then they'll spend more time working through issues and working through nuances and one-offs versus actually spending money on new functionality. So that would be my
Right.
recommendation. That's what we've done.
And how have you handled like the whole PCI component in the contact centers? Like we had one a few years ago, and literally we instructed, this was the technology at the time, but we instructed the staff to hit the pause button on the recording while they took the credit card information. So what have you been doing in that with that?
So that's really interesting that you said that. So there's a few things. We are trying to take it out of the phone process, if at all possible, by using different technologies. Right
Mhm.
now, we're working on putting out PCI Pal, because we are moving to Zoom as our cloud provider.
Mhm.
Um, but we also another thing, you can't expect agents that are taking call after call after call to do manual, asking them to manually pause and manually resume every call. That the
Right.
amount of time that adds is huge. So,
Hmm.
we've done custom development for what we call pause and resume, which automatically determined what screen they were on when they'd be taking a payment, and then would automatically pause the recordings and then resume when they moved to the new page once it was processed. So we've done some of that. But then again, looking for partners that have that specialty. There's a lot of functionality that providers are actually putting into their base now that they know that that's such an important ask. So people or product platforms like Zoom are doing that already. So that's kind of some of the things that we've done. And now there's technology where you can send text messages, have the person process the payment via that on their phone or on their PC, and then let the agent know when they're finished. So, there's a lot of different opportunities in seeking ways to get around that.
Hmm. So, by the way, with Zoom, were you at all affected with the minor worldwide AWS outage a couple weeks ago, or
We were not. We
wow,
were not impacted
at all? Wow.
at all. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a big statement. Yeah, because yeah, we had a contact center with a client of ours that was impacted for 6 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
was bad.
that's terrible. Yeah, I can't. I, I would really have a hard time if my business was out of commission for that period of time, especially because of the patients that need service, right?
Yeah.
So we have of course we have even tertiary redundancy built in because of our healthcare. But
Mhm.
yeah, we did not experience any issues during that time.
That's great.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, so just sorry to your point, your tertiary, right? So I think we spoke briefly, right, a couple of days ago. You were talking about some of the hospitals being on premise, the clinics being more on the Zoom side. I know there's a strategy involved, but what are you doing specific to tertiary? That'd be a great question to
So
ask.
actually what we're doing for tertiary redundancy is satellite. So
Hmm.
we are working with Starlink and some other satellite providers in order to provide services should everything else lose connection.
Wow,
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. So, as we started moving through this, with all of these things happening with the technology being in the place where it was, with all the remediation costs and things like that, we really needed to find something else. We needed to figure out a new strategy. So we really, in our organization, we have a lot of different towers, if you will, and even within IT, we have several different places. Our EHR systems, our nurse call, our contact centers have different integrations than our clinical areas. We've got mobile applications. We've got all kinds of different things that we have integrated, which most people do with their phone systems. So we really decided that in order to get around a lot of the network remediation costs that were just really stalling us, that we would have to move towards cloud. And of course, cloud had already came out and was already, showing the fact that it was required. And since there are new technologies allowing us to provide for the on-prem strategy, but have the cloud solutions, we decided to go ahead and head that direction. But now that brings up a whole new group of
Hmm.
challenges for us. So for us, it was about, okay, well, what about OpEx? Everything moved from CapEx to OpEx. Well, so did every other platform within our organization, right? So now all of a sudden we're all competing for the same bucket of funding, and it's all OpEx. And our organization is a very CapEx heavy organization. So that's a big problem for us, and we're working on that competition right now for FY27 planning. And then AI comes in, and we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do with AI, right? And everybody's like, oh, you just use AI, to solve the problem. And it's like, okay, well, we got to learn AI. We got to figure out how that applies in the voice world in our platform, right? In our multiple platforms. And is that really going to help us, or is that just going to make things more complicated? So just a lot of different things for us to think about in our new strategy. So, definitely thinking about, a lot of people talk about communications and, PBXs as a phone. It's just a phone, right? And I was shared with the group before that I've actually had an executive tell me that it's just a phone.
Has,
Everybody knows how
let
to
me
use
ask
it.
you a really stupid question. Has because this
Sure.
happened with one of our customers too in healthcare of all
Hmm.
places. Has anybody approached you and said, let's just go with cell phones?
Yes, yes, we did have that. Yes, yes.
Yeah, because yeah, we have the cell phones are reliable. We can just call one another and 11-digit, 10-digit dialing.
Right, exactly. Except for they hate 10-digit, 11-digit dialing. And cell phones don't always work everywhere, especially when you are in different buildings, some of
Yeah.
the older buildings, especially. So they're not as reliable as people would like to think. Yeah, yeah. So, the executive was just like, it doesn't make sense, why it takes so much money, why it takes so many skilled professionals to do this. The really not understanding how complicated it is, with all the different systems and tools and overworked staff and obviously competition for funding. What I really found was that it wasn't the technology that was the problem. It was our leadership, right? It was our alignment, the different towers going in different directions, the lack of collaboration together to talk
Mhm.
about, okay, what are our standards? What's our standard nurse call that integrates with our standard
Mhm.
platform for voice, which then, integrates with our EMR systems,
Mhm.
those type of things. So it's about the alignment and adoption, and that all leads into what the leadership is pushing down. When the leadership feels like it's just a phone, and he said, it's just a phone. It's like a toilet. Everybody has a toilet, and everyone knows how to use it. So I was kind
Yeah,
of
but
like,
it's
okay,
more complicated than a toilet.
it is. It is much more. However, that was their mindset, right? It's just a phone.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they don't understand it's actually its own personal computer. It just has a different, look and feel,
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's got a
Exactly.
much higher reliability model even than a laptop, but they don't
Yep.
realize that. So
Yep. So true. So right now, what we're working on right now is trying to find ways to speed up our implementation. So one of the things that we've decided is that, we need help, of course, in our deployments. I've got my own team of like 30, I think 34 people today, that do all of it. So because we couldn't rely on our vendors, I've just had to build my own team, right? In order to have the standards that we needed to make sure that we had the right engineering staff to accomplish what we needed to have.
mhm.
I built my own team. So right now, what we're looking at doing is taking my team, and instead of doing all the implementations ourselves, we're looking at training others and working with other organizations to help us to augment our staff to do our implementations the way we want. We really, really dug into our lessons learned and made sure that they were institutionalized. So I spend a lot of my time as the manager other towers in order to set standards and make sure that we're all working together in lab
Mhm.
environments. We now have a lab environment where we have the integrations in place, and we know exactly how to configure them prior to going out on site. So that's been a huge change for us. And we're really looking at doing simplicity, and then using our AI insights to helpfully, put us into a place where we've got more success and that we're going faster.
Have you considered any AI in the contact centers yet there, Michelle? Or
Oh yeah, we're right
okay.
there right now.
Okay. Yeah, what are
Yeah.
you doing in that area if you don't mind?
So right now we've got a couple of different things that we're doing. So towers again. We've got some Google AI, back end uh, groups that are working on some of the more complicated use cases using the Google AI. So that's part of what we're doing. But then we also have Zoom's voice, virtual agent voice, ZVAV as we call it. And so we're looking to start our deployments of that. And really, I'm trying to focus with my business on the crawl, walk, run. Uh, you
Yeah, yeah.
know, because they wanna run right now, but I know that No one's ready for running. They haven't trained, they haven't prepared. So we need to get them there, and that's part of what my role is as a leader, is to help them, to educate them,
Sure.
educate all the leaders that it's not just a phone and it's not just AI. You just put it in place. You just flip the switch. That's what they were saying this past week, is you just flip the switch. No, no, you don't. You've got,
No,
all
no,
the,
no.
yeah, yeah. You've got all the things that are really important,
No.
especially like the governance, right? So again, it's about making sure that the leadership and all levels are aware that, it's not a phone, it's a platform, right? It's a communications
Yeah, yeah.
platform, and it deserves to be treated that way.
Yeah, yeah. We just had an experience this week where we had 16,000 DID numbers that had to have characters associated with the outbound caller ID. And it just wasn't one site. There were like, 9 different variables depending upon the site. And it was not only crazy, but yeah, they expected it like, a week later, right after we had to decipher all of these different numbers for literally probably 70 different sites and 70 different, characters, or at least, partial of that. Yeah, it was amazing how they just expected it overnight. Like, why wasn't this done yesterday? So yeah, just can't you just flip the switch? No.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So on the AI side, are you looking at any kind of appointments, prescription refills, anything along those lines?
All of it, all of it. In
Okay.
fact, I mean, their use cases are coming out of the woodwork,
Yeah, yeah, they
for
are.
everything. Even
Hmm.
even our clinical informaticist groups want to use it for when they do activations, and at the elbow support for our physicians. They want to
Hmm.
have a contact center where they could have their phone connected with them, on the iPads and things, and they could provide support for the physicians while walking around while they're doing activations in a contact center type environment. So there's just so much, and that's just adding to the fact that, here's all this new capability that we want. Well, what about the sites that we haven't migrated yet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's really getting to be quite the conundrum for us of how do
Hmm.
we fix the old but still bring in the new at the same time. So a
Hmm.
lot of competition for funding for sure.
And what's your EHR platform? And maybe you have a few.
So we do have a few, but we are right now in a huge push to move all of our sites to Epic.
Hmm.
So that is where we're spending a bulk of our money over the, next few years, is on that
Hmm.
piece of it. So I'm hoping that they'll share some of their funding with us. Obviously, as we do integrations with Epic for voice and things like that, hopefully we'll be able to leverage some of that to do some, migrations of our older facilities, because they won't be able to integrate otherwise. Um,
Hmm.
but but it's just, we're working on it, obviously, but everything takes longer than you think, especially in healthcare. And once again, in another program, they did not account for all the infrastructure changes that would have to happen. So,
I know,
so yeah, so if
right?
I can say anything, my advice is consultants, please check the infrastructure.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did a clinical study for another client. Sorry, just not to take up a lot of time here. But interestingly, I cannot tell you how many access points were beyond end of life. Like
Yeah.
at least 40% of them, like
Yeah.
way beyond end of life. And it wasn't even a consideration for the clinical group because it worked. But for the IT group, yeah, yeah, and it was Cisco, and they have certain requirements for end of support. If you're beyond X amount, of releases beyond end of support, you won't even get a phone call, or you won't
That's
even be
right.
able to make a phone call. So it was very interesting. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, and we have that in a lot of our environments, and so that's it, where I'm trying to convince, our leadership that that's where we really need to focus our time and our money. But AI is so compelling, and all the new
Yeah,
cool things that you can do.
no, no question.
Yeah. So that's really, I mean, just to reiterate, it's not a phone anymore. It really isn't. It's not just the phone that you pick up and it works every time and you're good and you go and you hang up, right? It is a platform. So, it's an evolution, and doing whatever it is, then you'll need again, the cloud and AI are accelerators, right? They're
Hmm.
helpful, they're great, but they're not are. So again, I think it's really about the education that has to go in from the subject matter experts out to the leadership, that these things are great, and while we'll take advantage of them, they're not going to be able to flip the switch.
Yeah.
And then, again, whether it's healthcare or otherwise, it's about making sure that, you really take into account the complexity of the environment. And that, really it's about the leadership and the integration pieces and the adoption that are the barriers that
Hmm.
everyone will face moving forward.
Yeah. So let me ask you, has there been any debate or any requirements around return on investment strategies to
Mhm.
help, facilitate, these new capital costs or even subscription costs?
So there definitely has been some ROI, but usually when it comes down to things like that, it's
Hmm.
more about, when you can remove people out of the equation, then you can
Hmm.
get an ROI. Um, so it's a little bit tricky
Hmm.
in how you can show ROI, especially when you're doing migrations, right? Because
Hmm.
the ROI for migrations might just be in the changing out of the platform itself. Sometimes you can do cost savings, but a majority of the time it's more about, you know, it's not about the ROI on the migrations. It's about
Right.
making sure that you've got a stable platform.
Hmm. Really, what a concept.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yes.
so with the AI, again, just referring to some of our clients, as examples that um, in the AI space, it's very big on again taking these appointments and taking a full 20% of all the traffic, if you will, and pushing it to a bot, and therefore literally saving. And this is a small call center,
Mhm.
maybe 200 users, and we can save at least 3 million a year. I mean, the savings are definitely there.
They are.
And that's what's driving the AI. It's with senior management, that is, okay.
Right.
But it's also avoiding FTE costs because we know we need additional, full-time equivalents in the contact center to, and we're also leveraging it on the flip side around increasing the SLAs. So instead
Yep.
of having a 2-minute wait time, oh my God, God forbid, that was, another client's standard at one point. Oh yeah, that's the standard, right? 2 minutes. No, it's 20 seconds. You know, as an
Exactly.
I mean, that wasn't with the healthcare provider, wasn't it with another one? But interestingly, it comes down to, hey, maybe we can get the SLA down to 90/10, 90% of the calls
Hmm.
in 10 seconds or even better than that. And obviously, depending upon what state you're in, certain requirements actually lend itself to special funding as well. And so we're
That's right.
starting to see now certain targets, for clients where they want to hit certain, levels within the medical community, within the healthcare community, in order to show them that they are one of the top performers and using that as a measurement and then attracting new patients as well. So
Right.
yeah.
You're right, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. And that is all great. I think that, as we're moving forward in our AI journey, we definitely can get the ROI there.
Hmm.
We can certainly get ROI even and with AI with outbound calling.
Hmm.
So
Oh yeah.
dialing
Hmm.
campaigns and things like that.
Hmm.
I think that there's a big opportunity there. But again, it's really hard to think about things like that when we've got clinics out there on systems where they can't add users like you mentioned, they can't open a case for any issues that they have, or unfortunately they have, if we're buying parts from, Russia and other places to have on hand, just to make sure. So, I think that a lot of organizations, especially really large and, enterprise organizations, are all in that same boat. It's a mix between how do you get rid of the old if you haven't already, and how do you add these new things at the same time, and the balance between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do you have any of the hospitals? Again, you have, what was it, over 100 hospitals, if I
yeah,
remember. Are any of them still on some of the old legacy?
yes.
Really? Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
and again, that's an issue, right?
it is. It is absolutely.
Actually, a funny story again associated with that. But we had a legacy Nortel system that was in at least four hospitals with another client, and and the telecom manager who was trying to defend it saying we're on the most current release, even though the system was retired for like 15 years.
Well, I guess it is true.
Well,
That is
and by the way, he's retired now, so you know. So Beth, I'm sorry. No, I saw your video there. Sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hey, Michelle, on one of your slides, you were talking about technical debt, and obviously, technical debt is accumulating everywhere. And before you can even address it, you have new things coming in, and then you still have to fix the infrastructure. So, how do you balance that out? How do you,
Mm,
really get it in front of people? Hey, if we don't fix this infrastructure, we can't do anything. How do you balance that out?
I think one of the things that I use as a tactic personally is I use other departments and other technology that wants to do stuff. For example, nurse call, right? We
mm,
want to put in this new nurse call, or even Epic as a new
mhm,
EMR. They want to put in all this new technology. Well,
mhm,
you can't with the old systems. You can't, there's no
mhm,
integration, or if it is, it's very haphazard. You can't use
mm,
all this new fun technology stuff if you're not on a more advanced platform. So if they want to do that, then somebody's got to fund the migration, right?
mm,
So I'm actually using other platforms to get money for my team to do their work.
mm.
So that's
Wow.
one of my tactics.
Nice.
That's
And
very good.
then, you've got a lot, I know you've got a lot of different platforms in place. Are you still struggling with shadow IT, or are people still trying to do their own thing?
Oh, yeah, they definitely are trying to do their own thing. However, I've worked to get that to where all the leadership knows that subject matter experts are sit in the national environment. And so, word of mouth has really helped. It's funny how our reputation as a group has really taken off, and that they see us now because we've, again, pushing the fact that we are the subject matter experts, and we can help them
Mhm,
avoid the pitfalls that they would normally run into without us. And I'm sure same thing comes with all the consultants here, is
mhm,
that you've got years of experience in this, and so if they'll just let you help them, then
mhm,
you can make it much easier on them. And so now that we've done many of those, now the word of mouth actually gets around to all of our other business, all of the directors out in the areas, our regional and our area CIOs and things. They know, they've heard. So now, in working with them and building those great relationships and reaching out to the other towers, they'll actually say, "Oh, have you included the voice engineering team? Have you
mm,
talked to them about what you're trying to do?" So
mm,
they're now being routed and funneled all back to our part of the organization. It's taken years to build that, obviously, but
mm,
working with those other towers and communication outside of just who directly you're working with, but communication out to the rest of the organization really helps.
mm.
Thank you.
Keep going, Beth. You're on a roll.
Oh, I'm on a roll? Okay. So I think we've talked about this before. All of us are fairly senior people, and you have new people coming in. And how do you ensure that those very skilled senior people are training or mentoring the new people coming in? How do you ensure that
Mm,
that skill
yeah.
comes forward? That's really a problem across the industry.
It is absolutely, because a lot of people see telco or telephony as that's old stuff, right? That's the old stuff, and I don't want to do old stuff, right? I hear a lot of the younger generations say those type of things. So what I have done is in building my team, is when I bring on the youngins, the babies that are really young and just coming out of college, or younger, then is really making sure that I've got a mentor and coaching program that my engineers follow. So, it helps them to have people to go to for some of the simpler tasks that they can hand off to them. It's kind of a win-win for everybody. Less skilled start gaining more skills, and the highly skilled start giving away some of the more repetitive work. So it's kind of I've put them together to kind of mesh that and build that balance. I think that's the only way that we can encourage the less skilled folks to join the battle, if you will, and to
It's the telephone after all, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because, and then now they're interested in it once they've got a taste for it. Like I got hooked really, really on the healthcare thing about the patient safety and concern, and how everything that my group does, they know as long as they make the decision that's the best for what's right for the patient, what is the most important for the patient, that's how I get them to understand how important their job is. I think that once they see how their direct impact that they can have on our patients, on our providers, and talking about how it impacts them personally, how it may be their mother or their sister or their child or someone else that needs to reach that organization, and they can't because everybody falls back to the phone. Chat's great, and mobile's great, and all these other, texting's great, but really when it comes down to it, when people need service, they default to the phone. Making sure that they understand how important their role is, and that really gets them excited about, oh, okay, I am making a difference. And that kind of generates it. Now they all want to be engineers, which is
Of course.
fantastic.
So
Well, that's a
what's
good
your,
question. But can I do one more
yeah,
piggyback on that?
please, please, perfect.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks. So, when we all started out in telecom, there was no such thing as a telecom degree. I mean, most of us, right? So we kind of fell into it, and like you, we fell in love with it. So, what type of person coming out of college are you seeing that is going after this type of role, or fits in this role, or is a good choice?
I don't think it really matters what they're studying. I think it's, the people who even have, gosh, I've had engineers that have anatomy degrees, or, those type of things. So I think it's
Wow.
about having a basic, level of PC/technology, kind of mindset. People who are interested in technology of any kind. And then once you kind of can get them in the door and kind of show them, like I said, about how communications is a platform, how there's all these different areas and expertise that they could build, whether it's regular voice or contact center or integration pieces, that there's things that they can grow out of all of this with the new ability to do coding inside of these platforms and things like that. As soon as you start bringing those things up and they see a path and a way to build skills to help them grow, then it's a no-brainer. They become excited about it and understand that, it can be a career path. It's not dead. PBX is not dead.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All
Well
right, back
said.
to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Beth. So, hey, just, to finish this out there, Michelle, what has been either your single biggest challenge with your team or your organization? And then I have one more follow-up question, okay?
I would say it would just, again, the leadership support and the funding. You can't do anything without funding, and if leadership isn't 100% on board with what you need to do to get it done, then that's a problem. So, those are the two challenges.
Yeah, that's big. And then what do you consider, either from a best practices point of view, or just maybe your own successes? What do you consider, knowing that you have a staff now of 34 people, I think you said, right?
Yep.
What are a couple of the successes, or what are some of your best practice to keep everybody in line, so to speak, for lack of a
Uh,
good.
I think that one of the things that, trust. And I think
Mhm.
Art will talk, he's shared some how do you build great teams and how are great teams formed. And one of the things that's really important is having an area of trust where they can really people feel free to speak their minds.
Mhm.
My team knows that they can talk about anything and they won't be there's a safety there that we
Mhm.
all are allowed to communicate however we want and to really dig into some of the subject matters that might be shut down by other groups or whatever.
Sure.
So really building that trust, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is big. And I'm sure you've got standards also all within your
Yeah.
own particular group, which is, very big too. So any final questions for Michelle? We're at the top of the hour. So, well, Michelle, you're a killer app. And I really appreciate you being on today. You give us a very unique perspective. I mean, in our case, we are consultants, but many times we actually think that we're part of the staff. And so therefore, you're sharing, as a staff member, I think we can all relate big time.
Yeah.
So thank you for either confirming everything that we already thought of, as well as just, sharing your insights. Beth, any last comments there? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say goodbye to Michelle. So,
Oh. Okay, I saw you popped up again. Okay. Well, thanks
We've come
everybody
an
for joining.
awful
Let
long
everybody.
way from Strouder gear.
Hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks,
Thank
Yep.
Michelle. We'll all be in touch. Thanks so much for being on today, okay?
thank
Breath
you
of
all so
fresh
much
air.
for having me again. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
All
Michelle.
right.
Okay.
Take
Thanks,
care, everyone.
everybody. Bye-bye now.